Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. I am Brian Bosley, your host. And today we have a gentleman on this show, this episode, who I have known for over 30 years. We have Jim Bell. Jim is the president of ImSource Training and Consulting. Jim has worked in just about every facet, or probably every facet of the mortgage industry for almost 30 years now. This guy knows the ins and outs of the industry, but more than that, Jim is just an incredible person in this sense. When I talked to him a few weeks ago, when I asked him, what is your purpose in life and passion? First thing, didn't even question it, to serve the world, to serve other people. And that just shows he's married to Julie of 24 years, I believe. I could be wrong. He's got a daughter, Chelsea, 21, and a son, Brandon, 19. And when he's not focusing on his children or his family and work, he loves to hunt. He loves to fish, and he has a deep passion for cooking. But going back to what I said about serving others, Jim really loves to mentor people. He loves to mentor other professionals in his industry, but he also likes to coach youth softball. So he's got this spirit about him of just wanting to give back to the world, to his family, to the community. And the other side of it is Jim knew me and I knew him at probably our goofiest stages of life. Back in the 1990s, we both played rugby football at Central Michigan University. So those stories will probably stay off this show. But in the meantime, Jim Bell, my friend, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Thank you very, very much for having me. Yeah, I think it's best that we leave the rugby stories off just to keep things on the up and up.
Got to keep some integrity in the show. And everybody else, I want to mention, we're experiencing a lot of high winds here today. I'm in Wisconsin, and a lot of snow and blowing. There might be some glitches in the audio. Just let it go. The service might be interrupted here and there. So anyway, let's get back to Jim. Jim, tell us about yourself. I mean, obviously, I know a great deal about you, but tell the Bamboo Pack members out there a little bit about yourself, your childhood, family, where you grew up, and kind of who or what inspired you to become the man you are today.
Well, grew up in Trenton, Michigan. Born and raised, I guess, south of Detroit. Have never really moved outside of about 10 miles from where it all started. In fact, my parents still live in our childhood home. So I get to go back and visit my old room and see that on a regular basis, although now it's an office, I believe.
It never stays our room.
Yeah. Had two brothers, John and Mike, both older. So I was the baby of the family. Both mom and dad are still doing well and living in the old house on Cleveland Street. Grew up playing a lot of sports, did a lot of things within our neighborhood. I guess, back then, and maybe you'll attest or understand when that, those were days where we went out and played, right? I mean, we went out and we played all day. So it might have been baseball, basketball, football, depending on the season, or maybe it was just a hide and seek or whatever it might have been. So we spent lots and lots of time running around the neighborhood. There were kids of all ages. So, our gang of merry folks running around the neighborhood ranged anywhere from 6 to 16. So it was a neat neighborhood to be a part of. I grew up, like I said, small town, but very, very loving family. Very close to my family still. So, somewhere in the career path, I mean, I meandered a bit. Yes, I landed in the mortgage industry, but I will tell you the same as anybody in the mortgage industry, it was never a career goal. Mortgages is something that people sort of fall into right? I mean, I don't know that if you were to go around a room full of people and ask how many people said they wanted to be a loan officer when they grew up, that you're ever going to see a hand raised.
Why is that, Jim? Why is that, you think? You said that before.
I just don't know that people understand that it's out there, that it's a thing, right? I mean, it's, we hear about doctors, we hear about firefighters and police officers and accountants, but I don't think people ever think that, there's there whose whole job is to help you finance a home. We hear about the realtor, but it's just not a career that I think is in the forefront. And there's not a lot of education directly for it, which I think is kind of a mistake in the industry. And it's something that we're trying to help solve at MSource is, how do we provide some additional education on the loan origination and running a broker shop and being a business owner and things like that. But I think it's just a matter of people just don't realize that it's a career path, and it can be an incredibly profitable and rewarding career path. I've spent the better part of these last 30 years in one shape or form, whether it's a direct-to-consumer or helping other loan officers or other business owners, try to reach their goals, right? So as a consumer, it was, how do I get you into the best financing we can to satisfy your home needs, right? As a loan officer, it's how do I make you a better loan officer? How do I help you to sell more loans? How do you get in touch with more people? How do you build more referral networks? And then as business owners, it's kind of taking it to that next step, right? Like, how do you manage all the hats you have to wear? Because you're still a loan officer by heart, and that's what you want to be doing, but you now have a lot of other responsibilities, and how do you balance and juggle those things? So that's me, I guess, is I love to help people solve problems, right? Is get in there and see where they're at and what they need to be doing and what they want to be doing, and then how can I help them?
Well, going back, so that idea, and you had mentioned that to me when we talked 3 or 4 weeks ago. What was it who was it in your childhood, or was it an experience or a teacher, or a book, or a parent? Who inspired you, or what inspired you as a child to be this man who wants to help people solve problems?
I think it goes back to my parents, right? I mean, I still look back at my parents and think, how in the world did they do the things they did, right? I mean, between the fact that we weren't a wealthy family growing up, but we never really wanted for anything. We always went on summer vacations. We always did things, right? I don't know how my dad, as many hours as he worked, never missed baseball games or basketball games or football games. So I think, I grew up watching two people do everything for their kids and for their parents and for their friends. And just the joy that they got out of watching other people get what they wanted or succeed in what they were trying to do. To me, it's, I just look back on that and it's like how they did the things they did still don't know. Like how we went on summer vacation every single year all over the country. I think by the time I was 17, I think I had already been in like 42 states.
Wow.
And most of it was driving in a big old blue Econoline van. It wasn't flying around.
Were you buckled around? Were you buckled in?
Oh, no. We were sitting on the big hump that was right between the front seats, right? I mean, that's where we all sat. So, but, when I look back, I mean, that truly is where it is. I mean, they've inspired me at so many different levels, and even today. I mean, they are still there anytime I need them for anything. I still look back to a conversation that I believed changed the trajectory of where I am right now. And it was a conversation I had on my dad's porch. And we sat there one day, and I was still kind of new and green in the mortgage business. And I think I was belly aching a bit about, the market. And I don't know if this is the right career for me. And maybe I'm doing this wrong. And I, hemming and hawing and second guessing. And he sat there just very quietly listening. And, I think when I was done with my grade, he looked at me and he said, "Is this what you want to do? Like, do you enjoy this? Does this drive you? Does it make you happy?" And I said, "Yeah, it really does." I said, "I just don't know." And he's like, "Stop." And he's like, "You have never had anything in your life that you put a target on that you weren't able to do."
Hey, Jim,
and he's like, "What I
can
need."
you repeat
Yep.
that from what your dad?
Sure.
It's glitching in and out a little bit. Just your dad
Oh.
quietly. Then he asked you, "Do you like this?" And then you said yes.
Okay. So, he listened to what I finally said, and he just quietly looked at me and said, "There's never been anything you've wanted to do that you haven't been able to do. And what I think you need to do now is focus on what are your next steps, right? Stop second guessing. Stop questioning yourself. Stop with all the negativity and just figure out how to do it." And, I think it was that conversation that led, and I don't know exactly where I heard the quote the first time, but it's something that has driven my career ever since, which is, fail your way forward. And, it was those words that he said that day on the porch that just kind of drove me to the idea of just keep moving forward, get up and keep working toward the things you want. Stop questioning whether you can or can't, and just do it. And for me, that changed everything.
What are your mom and dad's names?
My dad's name is John, and my mom's name is Kathy.
Kathy. So this is dedicated to John and Kathy Bell, because you have raised one hell of a great son, and he's making a difference in the world. And I love that. And you have said that, I think, every time we've talked in the last few weeks, Jim, you have said fail your way forward. Mm-hmm. And tell us what that means to you. If there's an audience member out there right now who's probably thinking, what does he mean by fail your way forward? Because we think of failure as we're regressing, but you're talking about failure as a progression.
So failure way forward is, and I share this with my kids all the time too, and anybody that I work with, is that if I fail and I screw up more things than just about anybody I know. And that's because I will try things that most people won't try. And I guess my thing is I don't feel like I have to be the expert to get started at something. I just have to get moving. And to me, I would rather try something and fail and then get up and try it again and fail again and keep failing at it until I've got it right. Because at the end of the day, we go back to all the stories we've ever heard about Thomas Edison and the light bulb and all the things that people just kept failing and failing and failing. I think the other powerful one that you hear from the sports side is like Michael Jordan, right? Cut from his high school basketball team and, all the shots that he missed. But he just kept going. And he kept failing and failing and failing until he wasn't failing anymore. And I still believe that I fail every day, but I want to think that I'm always failing ahead. I'm failing forward in my life. That, just because I fell down, I still got back up and I tried it again the next day. And I keep achieving things because I failed forward.
Okay. That reminds me, there was a time, Jim, when I was with American Express Financial Advisors. This is back in 95, maybe 94, probably a year or two before I left and started my consulting firm. We were in Monterey, California for a leadership conference. And my regional vice president, his name was John Hance. You probably see Hance Financial around the Detroit area.
We do.
Yeah. Well, he was with Ameriprise, and I think at the time, and I don't really know the exact numbers, but I think there were 35 regions around the country that were Ameriprise financial advisors. Each one had maybe 400 or 500 different employees. And at the time, John's region was number one in the country. But if I remember the numbers, and I could be wrong, we were doing $1 billion a year. Where in second place was doing like 500 million. So it was a dramatic difference between first and second place. So all the other 34 people, all great human beings, weren't competing well with John. And there was a lot of, I think, jealousy and animosity toward him. And he was like you. He tried everything. And we were at a conference in Monterey, California. Again, this was 30 years ago, so 31 years ago. But I remember the words. I think we were around a buffet table getting our food. And John and I and a few other people from our region were in the line. And somebody yelled across the buffet line and said, "Hey, Mr. Hans," a person who didn't really think highly of John, who was maybe a little envious or jealous. He said, "I see you guys have crashed a lot of planes this year." And the whole buffet, or I think it was the buffet, or maybe we were on a big table, everybody stopped. And John paused and he said, "We have." He said, "But you know what? We've crashed planes you don't have the balls to fly." And it just took the wind out of the room, of everybody there, like, whoa. And that was a learning for me at that moment of that. And that stuck. Those exact quotes stuck with me, and that was his way of saying "fail forward," just like you're saying now, 30-some years later.
Yeah, I think it's just we have to be willing. I think I think the other one that I go back to is along those lines was something I remember hearing Les Brown, who I always love listening to Les Brown just because I'm not sure it's. If I'm being coached or going to church.
Right. Yeah.
A little bit of both, right? Because I always feel like live when I listen to him. But, one of the to say was that you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to be started to be great, right? And I don't know if that was originally him who coined it, but it was something I remember him saying over and over and over. And I just... It's that same type of a premise of you got to get started somewhere, and I'm willing to fail until I figure it out.
Yeah, well, I think so many people in the world, and even myself, and probably yourself included, years ago, I always thought motivation was the creation of action, and I've learned, and I tell my children, I tell my clients, motivation seldom creates action, but action creates motivation. If you just
Correct.
Get out there and start something, think about working out. I can't sit on the couch on a day like today when it's stormy and snowy and windy and motivate myself to go for a hike or a run. But if I just go out there and do it, instantly I'm motivated. Within the first 3 or 4 minutes, I'm ready to go. And I think Mel Robbins does this really well. I'm a big Mel Robbins fan. I'm reading her third book right now. It's called Let Them. But she has the 5-second rule. So I think that's the title of her first book. She's like, whenever you're contemplating doing something you don't want to do that you need to do, don't think about it. Say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And just do it. Because after 5 minutes, you're going to convince yourself, or 5 seconds, you will convince yourself not to do that thing. You're talking about that on a much larger scale, of course. But that applies whether we're doing something, we're trying something new that we might fail at, or if we just have to go out for a run, or put the phone down and start reading a book. So fail your way forward. I think I love that. Hey, so in the last 12 months, 1 to 2 years, Jim, what would you say is your greatest learning?
Excuse me. I think about this a lot, and for me, it's that we're never done learning. I think of the points in my life, in my career, where I have been stuck, and it's usually because I stopped feeding my brain. I think I shared with you one of our previous conversations about the fact that, I look at my career in mortgages and I consider myself a 30-year rookie, right? That every day I'm going to learn something new. And I think one of the bigger things that I've learned over the last several years is that we always have to keep that mindset in the forefront of what we do, right? We're constantly opening to learning new things, whether it's from our peers, whether it's from a book, whether it's from a podcast like this, whether it's, going to a seminar, wherever it might be. We have the ability to absorb more information in today's environment than we ever have before. So keep feeding your brain, because that's, I don't know that ideas are, and we may have talked about this previously, but it's like, I don't know that ideas are really truly created anymore. I think a lot of the things but I think we spur new variations of ideas, and how can we take something else and modify it to help somewhere, some other way? How do we repurpose older ideas to new ideas? And I just feel like learning for me has always been that outlet to continue the creativity, to continue to strive for something more than what I see in front of me. Because I know that there's always more to learn.
Right.
So I think the more we feed the brain, the better we get.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Now, you're right. Right now, in this era of our existence is an era we have so much information at the tip of our fingertips. And we can use it one of two ways. We can scroll social media, TikTok, Snapchat, or my weakness is YouTube. I can literally sit down and I can go a half an hour and but come to my senses and say, I just watched 30 minutes of dumb stuff that provides no value to me, and so we have that option of doing that, or the option of, like you said, listening to podcasts, watching speakers that we would never have access to. We can obviously read books online, or actually pick up a damn physical book and read it.
Right.
I don't know if you and I talked about this, Jim, but there's an interesting story that happened in 1899. At the time, this gentleman by the name of Charles Duell his title was the Commissioner of the United States Patent Office. So he ran the U.S. Patent Office in 1899. So he's the guy running the patent office, of creation of inventing of new things. And he sent a telegram or a telegraph to U.S. President William McKinley, and it said something to the effect of, "Dear Mr. President, I, as Commissioner of the U.S. Patent Office, request or recommend that we consider shutting down the U.S. Patent Office." And in quotes, his reasoning was, because everything that can be invented has already been invented. That was 1899. And he thought everything that could ever be invented has already been invented. And I think just about everything you or I or any of the podcast listeners right now have done since they woke up this morning, probably 99% of the things they've used or experienced was something created, invented post 1899. And it seems so short-sighted and narrow-minded for Charles Duell to say that and to think that way. But at the same time, I ask myself, are we really any different? I mean, so many times we shut our own patent office down. So often we stop learning, we stop absorbing, we start clicking YouTube videos for 30 minutes at a time, or we scroll Facebook or TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. When we have that opportunity at those moments to learn and absorb information that is right there at our fingertips, any possible subject you ever want to learn is there. And there's a good book for anybody out there who wants to listen called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And he talks about when you are in the moment of trying to learn, absorbing, being free with your mind, instead of being connected to social media, you'll come up with ideas, and they're not even ideas you create. Kind of what you said, Jim, earlier. He calls it the muse. The muse will speak to you, and you will come up with some grandiose thought or idea that could revolutionize your life or the lives of others. But we have to be available. We have to have that mind. Our patent office has to be open for that muse to enter the doors. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that's an incredibly powerful lesson.
And another thing about it is it can be empowering, not just for the person absorbing the information. One of the things that I think our egos sometimes get in the way. Right? We think we know more than we do. We think we know it all. We think we've arrived. We think we've, achieved what we need to achieve. And one of the things I enjoy about just being open to learning is like, even, with the people I work with, we'll talk about why we do certain things the way we do certain ways. And my point to them is, we do it that way because that's the best idea I've had so far. And I have no problem that if your idea is better than mine, we're going to make that a reality, and we're going to change the way we do things. And it's your idea. Let's run with it. So I think being open to the idea of learning from everybody around you, whether it's, up the chain, down the chain, laterally, wherever the information is coming from, when you're willing to accept that, you learn from other people, I think it becomes empowering for them as well, because now you're giving them the power to be able to make decisions and make suggestions and understand that there's value in their ideas, in their ability to learn more. And it just creates that cycle of freedom for all of us, right? Like we're not trapped by our confines anymore, because it's not just what I can come up with. It's what you can come up with. It's what my neighbor can come up with. It's what anybody else can come up with. So when we're open to it, we just expand the array of possibilities.
100%. And there's nothing better than believing in someone else's idea to increase their sense of self-worth, to give them a voice, to empower them as a human being, and really give their opinion, their thoughts, their ideas, the respect that it deserves. And you've raised two kids, but I know they're still in college now, and I have a son in college, and I've raised a daughter, and I've helped raise 3 other amazing adult men when they were little. We learn a lot from the people we think we're supposed to be teaching, if we just open our ears and eyes and listen. I mean, I learn at least probably as much from my clients over time as they learn from me.
So it's interesting you say that, because when you asked about inspirations, I find it ironic for me that my inspirations seem to be at 2 very interesting ends of a spectrum, right? So like my primary, sense of inspiration early in my life and it still is my parents. But I find a tremendous amount of inspiration from my children. I mean, Chelsea and Brandon are just amazing people. I mean, their general acceptance of others and their kindness and the way that they view things and the perseverance that I watch with the 2 of them. It's inspiring to me. I think of Chelsea, was not probably the most gifted athlete there ever was, but was arguably the best catcher I've ever had the pleasure of watching play softball, because she worked at it and she loved it and she just kept going and going and working and trying. And I see Brandon has had some whether it was some health issues here and there and physical issues, and he just has the best attitude and the best frame of mind about just continuing to charge forward and keep his mind and body focused on being positive. I mean, it's just some of the things he's been dealt at his age of only 19. I mean, a lot of people would be like, the world's got it in for me. And instead, he just keeps driving forward and figuring like, okay, well, there's a wall there. I guess I got to go either over it, around it, under it. I don't know, but I'm getting past it. And, I find them inspiring as well. And, like you mentioned about we learn from the people we're supposed to be teaching. I think we can also be inspired by the people we hope to inspire.
100% agree. Like you said, as long as we keep that patent office door open, and we, I know there's been times in my life where my door's been shut. Thankfully I've got enough people in my life that call me out on when I feel like I'm getting narrow-minded. Because look, you and I have been doing what we do for almost 30 years, and that would be in the real world, we'd be called experts. I have never considered myself an expert, but I have gotten very arrogant at times about my ability to coach others and understand human behavior, and it's embarrassing. Look at the podcast. Last year I've shared this on the air a couple of times. I was so grossed by my own behavior, my own thought patterns, because I was so I was so intrigued or engage the numbers. We hit the top 10% of all podcasts in the world. I was looking at every day, how many more countries did we get? How many more cities? How many more subscribers do we have? And it got to the point where after about maybe, I don't know, I'm thinking 6 weeks of that, 2 months, I don't know what it was, late last summer, I started feeling just disgusted with myself. Like the arrogance took over why I really started doing this. And so I shut it down for 3 months, 2.5, 3 months. To open up my patent office, because it was clearly closed on doing why I did this, and that's the problem with becoming very experienced, I think, in life, like you are and I am in our chosen fields, is we have to always be on guard against that ego. At least I do, and I have to keep a really tight noose on that thing, or a rope tied around that thing, or it's going to go crazy. Keep it in a cage.
Well, I think we forget the mission and the purpose, right? It's like the success or the experience or the whatever it is we're doing takes on a life of its own, and we lose the original essence of where we were. Right. Like for me, it's when I was writing originating loans, it was all about helping the consumer. Right. It was like, how do I help you get into the house of your dreams, or take some cash out of the property so you can, add on that new, wing of the house, or add, put in a new kitchen, or whatever it might be. Like, how do I help you reach those dreams? Right. And all through my career, I think you're right. We get stuck in the idea of, okay, how many more loans can I write? How many more dollars can I make? How many more things can I do? And you start to lose the essence of, no, it's how many more people can I help?
Yeah.
And it's powerful when we go back to that really core essence of why we started doing what we're doing. And I think the more that we stay open to the idea of, like you said, that you have a lot of people in your world that help you sort of correct yourself when you start veering. It's important that we surround ourselves with those people so that they can keep us focused on why we do what we do, and not to get swallowed up by the process.
I agree. And I think in addition to that is putting ourselves in the apprentice role, because when you're the master of your domain every day, and you're mastering your career, and your people are coming to you for advice and counsel and direction, I think it's important to be an apprentice at something at all times. My girlfriend's daughter owns a couple of yoga studios called Yoga 3 here in Neenah, Wisconsin, as well as there's one in Appleton, Wisconsin. So Jackie's big into yoga. Her daughter owns it. She's been doing yoga for years. And a couple of Sundays ago, we were doing yoga in her living room. And I've only done yoga like 3 times in my life. And that was years ago. And she was instructing me on these different poses, and they hurt. I mean, I don't care how much you work out. Yoga hurts. And she was kind of snapping at me a little bit. I'm like, dude, relax, man. And I realized, no. You need to listen, because you need to be an apprentice at this and act like an apprentice. Keep your mouth shut and your ears open, Brian. And it was a good learning for me that I need to make sure that I'm in a role at least once a year in something I've never done before, and to be taught and trained by somebody who knows what they're doing, and put myself in the role that my clients are in when I'm working with them. So I think, listening, being open, as well as, putting yourself in a position of being a newbie at something on occasion is really powerful for our development.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree.
Jim, what would you say would be one of the most difficult things you as an individual has gone through over your life, and what did you do to overcome that?
Well, I think, I've thought a long time about, these types of questions over my lifetime. Like what is the most difficult thing? And I think for me, life is the most challenging thing we all deal with, right? We all get thrown curveballs. We all get thrown adversity. I think about my wife, Julie, and I, 24 years ago, here we were, young kids, getting married, thinking about starting a family, successful careers, everything going, and we find out, 4 or 5 months into our marriage that, we're expecting, and we couldn't be happier. I mean, I never missed a doctor's appointment, and I felt like that was my role, right? I had to be there for all the doctor's appointments and all the stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And apparently, good Lord had a different plan, that we had to learn some things, and we lost our son at 37 weeks. He was stillborn. It was devastating. But I think when I look back and I think of that, I think of times when we went through the financial crisis with the mortgage industry. I think of, physical health issues that I've had, physical health issues my wife has had, setbacks we've had with the kids. Life deals us a lot of challenging things. But if I were to tell you what the one thing that I think has been most difficult is learning to get back up. You know, when something terrible happens, no matter what it is, and it's all in perspective, right? So what happens to me, isn't better or worse or more significant or less significant than happens to somebody else. It's the most important thing and the most significant thing in their world. So I think the most difficult thing is when those things happen is to be able to figure out how to get back up and just start going again. And I think the answer for that is you sort of scale that wall by just getting up and you start one step at a time. You do one day at a time, and you just, I go back to my mantra, right? The failure way forward. When difficult things happen to all of us, it's important for us to have whatever it is within you to be able to just get back up and keep going. And like I said, for me, I mean, I could point to a whole host of different things that have happened. I don't know that any one is more significant than another. But I think it's really about getting back up and how do we just keep moving forward. And that takes friends, it takes family, it takes, support, it takes all the things that we all cherish. But we got to keep going and we got to keep getting back up.
There's definitely a general theme to the message you're delivering to the audience today. And it's very clear. And quite often when I'm in the middle of a talk like this with someone, I am thinking about what is the theme here? What is this individual trying to get across to the Bamboo Pack members out there? And this one has been very clear. It's probably the most clear one I've had in a long time. It is failure way forward. Get back up, one step at a time, one day at a time. Just get it back up off the ground. Have you ever read? I mean, we might have talked about this. I'm not sure, but I know I brought it up with the audience before. The book, The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch.
I think I've heard of it. I don't know that I've actually read it myself, but I think if it's the same book that I'm thinking, I think I have heard of it. But, I mean, please refresh me because I don't know if it's the same thing I'm thinking of.
Well, Randy Pausch was at Carnegie Mellon University's computer science professor. And I don't know the time frame. I'm going to say this was 15 years ago. It might have been not quite that many years. It might have been longer, but in that time frame. And he was diagnosed. He was a young guy. I think it was in his early 40s. And he had, I believe it was 2 young boys. He and his wife did. And he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and incurable. So he knew he was going to die. So as a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, remember we used to be in rugby tournaments and they'd see our CMU shirts and they thought we were Carnegie Mellon University. So right there, I think of Carnegie Mellon.
I do remember that.
You guys go to Carnegie Mellon? Nah, CMU, Central Michigan. Anyway, so when you retire from that school, you get to give a last lecture. So you fill the auditorium with anybody you want, and they tape it, they videotape it. And he wrote this speech for his 2 boys. And the speech, you can find it on YouTube, just Randy Pausch last lecture. It's the actual speech, videotaped. And in part of the speech, he talks, as he's giving a talk, he's saying, this is my legacy to my children, because they are going to grow up without a father the rest of their lives. And he talks about life is all about brick walls. You're going to come across brick walls all your life. Some are going to be high, some are going to be short, some are going to be average. And he said the reason the brick walls are there are not for us to turn around and retreat. And his quote was, the brick walls are put there for you to prove how badly you want what's on the other side. And that quote stuck with me. And I saw the lecture, I don't know, when it ever aired on YouTube or wherever it was aired back then. And then I read the book. It became so popular. I think it was the number one, I believe it was YouTube, download of all times when it came out. And then he wrote a book on the same subject before he passed away and left an amazing legacy to millions of people around the world who heard his vision. And that's exactly what you're saying is brick walls are there, but they're there for us to prove how badly we want what's on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, that's powerful, but it's true. It really is. It's just, we have just such infinite potential, and it's just a matter of figuring out what ignites every person to go for that. right? And how to keep going when we don't get what we want. Like I see right now in the mortgage industry, loan officers are really struggling. This is we've had a protracted 20 years of incredibly low interest rates. We've had plenty of housing available for sale. And now we're seeing kind of another one of these perfect storms in the financial markets with mortgages, because rates have gone up rapidly. There are generations of buyers who've never heard of rates in the 6s and 7s, let alone 8. There are loan officers that have never heard of rates in the 6s and 7s and 8s. And I think they're all kind of finding that, I call it the who moved my cheese moment, right? Like for a long, long time, things were very, very good. And now the market has gotten really difficult. There's limited inventory. There's a lot of vying for competition on every house that goes up on the market. And then couple that with interest rates and people not wanting to move, and I get that question, I get questions about, what do I do? Like, how do I stay going in this business? And it's like, well, you just got to keep going. You have to find new avenues, right? Do you manage people's life events for them? If I'm a 50-something and both my kids have moved out and I'm in a 3,000 square foot house, I'm probably thinking about downsizing. And at the same time, if I'm a loan officer and I see a family or a young couple find out they're pregnant with twins and they're in a 1-bedroom apartment, guess what? They're probably going to need a bigger place and maybe a house. Go out there and figure out how do you tap into people's, needs more effectively. And how do you just keep moving forward, right? I mean, I think so many are just sitting back in the woes of, well, I'm waiting for rates to come down. It's like, well, you're not going to wait till gas prices go down to drive the car.
That's a great metaphor.
So, you just get up and get out there and go after it. And I think I go back to that conversation with my dad, right? It's like, you have a choice, right? You want this, then go figure out how to make it happen. Stop second guessing whether you can make it happen.
Is that a book you recommend to people, Who Moved My Cheese?
Oh, absolutely. I think Who Moved My Cheese it's a very, very short read. But for me, I thought it was very powerful. I mean, the message is very, very clear that, we constantly have to be looking around the corner for the next thing, right? I mean, because we can't bank that everything we ever had will always be there.
I agree. And for those who haven't heard of it, this is a book by Spencer Johnson called Who Moved My Cheese, and it's about 2 mice and 2 little men going through a maze and how they have different personalities and how, one obviously continues to persevere and adapt to the changes in his or her situation, and finally, obviously gets the cheese, so to speak, because the cheese keeps moving in the maze. So I would recommend that book to anyone. In fact, as you were talking, I thought I haven't read that book in probably 3 or 4 years, and I have it in my best. I have my books. Most of them are in a storage unit, but I have a select group of books, maybe 150 at my house. But then I have about 30 that are set right in front of my TV in the TV stand, but on the bottom, so that when I'm looking at the TV, those books are drawing me, and that's in that pile, or in that row. But I have not read that in a while, so I'm going to reread it this year.
Yeah, it's a great read. Like I said, it's not a long read, but it's a very powerful message, and it's very true.
Jim, at this stage in your life, you've got 2 children, been married for 24 years. What was I right on that?
Yes.
24 years.
24 years what is today? At the end of this month, on the 31st, it'll be 24 years officially.
Okay.
So.
Don't forget that date.
Nope, never do.
Good for you. You got 2 children in college, obviously doing very well. Career is doing well. You're coaching softball. What do you consider a win to be in your life? What's a victory for you?
I mean, a win is watching somebody else succeed. It's just that simple for me. It's them getting what they wanted and me being able to help in any way I can to get them there. So I look at it as, I'll go back to softball, right? I've been doing softball and or baseball when Brandon was playing, but, I coached a lot of softball for Chelsea as she was growing up, and I continue to coach now. And there's just nothing to me like watching the effort and, the years and hours of working in a gym or out on the field with a kid that all of a sudden it clicks and they get it. Yeah. And they get that hit, that home run. They make that play in the field. They make that throw, whatever the circumstance may be. There's nothing more exciting to me than watching that moment. People have always asked, like, what did I love about sports? Why did I play sports? Why do I do the things that I do now, right? Whether it's in the mortgage industry, whether it's in coaching, whether it's, being a father, being a husband. I always say you play for the moments. After it's all said and done, every single one, we're not going to remember if we won the game. We're not going to remember if we lost the game. We're probably not even going to, some of those rugby games, I don't even know if we remember the game we got hit so hard. But what you will remember is the moments. Yes, right? Yeah. That moment that you hit the home run, the moment that you made the play that you never thought you could make, the moment you drove in the winning run, you scored the touchdown, you scored the try, you stopped the try from somebody else that was about to score. Those moments, no one can ever take away those moments from us. Those are just etched in our minds. And I'm sure you, me, and everyone on this call can think back to one of those moments in their life that if you close your eyes, you can not only just see it, but you can smell it, you can feel it. And it sends tingles around your body. Well, right? Yeah. It's those moments that we do things for.
I love the way you phrase that. And I literally, when you were talking, I was thinking back about moments and I got goosebumps, I guess the tingles. I don't remember what our record even was the years I played rugby. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Sometimes I don't know if we won or lost a game. I remember I've talked to a lot of guys who over the years have bragged about us winning the Michigan Cup. And I'm like, guys, we never did win the Michigan Cup. Yeah, we did. I said, no, we didn't. We came in second place one year. And I remember somebody running, I won't say the name in case he's listening, but running down the pitch, went to score, put the ball down what he thought was the try line, but he was still 10 yards back. And we would have won the Michigan Cup. But we never won that thing. But that's the point you're making, is whether we won or lost is not the memory. Some of us remember having won. The rest of us don't say we didn't, but we don't care. It was the moments in some of those games or those practices that, or just even off the field that you make in life. Sometimes it's in a boardroom. Sometimes it's with your family on a vacation.
Yep. That's it. And it's like I said, even now at this stage of my career, I get to live those moments when I watch somebody that I'm coaching have their moment. And I get to sort of relive my own set of moments watching them get theirs. And it doesn't matter to me if it's, I think back to, in my current role with M-Source, we work with mortgage brokers all over the country. And I think of, like right now, I have one think of that I remember, 6.5, 7 years ago when they called up terrified and they were breaking off on their own, and it was just a husband and wife, right? Mm-hmm. That was it. I fast forward now and I consider them as much friends as clients, and to watch that they're now, they were licensed in one state. It was just the two of them. And now they're licensed in about 27 states. They've probably got 75 plus loan officers. They're closing more loans than they could ever have imagined or dreamed of at that time. And to just watch that and know that I got to be a part of that and watch that success. I mean, to me, it's exhilarating. Yeah. And it's for me, those are the moments, right? Like every time I get to see that, it's that moment that drives me.
It's like what I hear you saying is you love to be a part of someone else's journey. Just be a part of it, helping. Yeah. Now, Jim, can you share in a nutshell with the audience exactly what ImSource provides?
Sure.
I know, obviously, just so that people know, because there are mortgage lenders out there, brokers listening to this. I know there are a lot of them. So share.
So ImSource we're a consulting firm. We specialize with the mortgage lenders and brokers and loan officers of the country. I always say that, our ideal client is that individual that decides they want to break off on their own and they want to carve out their own niche and start their own company. We will help them from the inception of that idea up to the point where they are still expanding and growing as they continue on. So it could be, you could call me and say, hey, I want to become a mortgage broker and this is what I'm going to do. And we form your company. We help you get established. We help you with all the licensing and the paperwork that needs to happen to get there. And then we counsel and coach you on, making sure that you're running a compliant company and you're doing the things that you need to do to stay, compliant and successful. So, I guess the way that I put it to people is, we help you get up and running and licensed, and then we help you keep it.
Perfect. So we're going to include in the show notes, if those who are interested, please, in the bottom of the show notes, we're going to include a link to ImSource. Click on that, explore. They've got a really great website. You can see a picture of the team, and please click on it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I'll connect you directly to Jim. Okay, this is my favorite question, Jim. This is one that intrigues me the most with people, or at least one of the top two favorite questions is, I'm here in Neenah, Wisconsin. You're on the south side of Detroit. South side? Yeah.
Yep.
Downriver. If I come over today, log on a trailer, my time machine, you and I get in it. We go back to a predetermined, whatever you decide, when you were a younger version of Jim Bell. And you get to sit and give yourself some words of advice, some direction, some success ideas. What would you say to your younger self?
Okay, so this is outside of the Back to the Future where I know what to bet on, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have the betting books.
I was going to say, because that seemed to work out okay for a part of it. So I think I would just go back and say, look, you know what? I mean, be true to yourself. Do the things that bring you joy and help you kind of get where you want to be. I think, and you and I have talked about this before, I think we all sort of build barriers around ourselves in anticipation of who we are. Mm-hmm. And I think oftentimes we get stuck within our own barriers that we've built up, and we lose sight of who we truly are, right? And it's finding those ways back to your true self and what your true purpose and your essence is that is most valuable. And I think I know me personally, I have veered from that path and sort of locked myself into time periods where I was convinced I was somebody I wasn't. And I just lost that time. And, time is one of the things we just can never get back. And I would say to myself, look, don't lock yourself in a box ever. Be true to yourself, believe in the things that you believe in and go 100% toward them, right? I often tell, my staff here at ImSource, you do the right things and good things follow. And I think we lose sight of that sometimes because we get caught in the process, and we're too consumed by other things, and we lose sight of ourselves. And I think if I were to go back in time and look at myself in the mirror or look at myself face to face, I would just be like, you have to be true to yourself.
Be true to yourself. And I think that's a difficult one for a lot of people because, like you said, sometimes we have these barriers around us. I call it, layers of marble around us that we don't really know who our true selves are. And that's why I think it's so important to stop and listen to yourself, listen to others, get off social media, turn the TV off, journal, read, whatever you need to do to quiet your brain, meditate, yoga, work out, go for a walk, spend time in nature, whatever it might be. When you do those types of things, you have a propensity to actually start to find out who you are. A mutual friend of ours, Jim, that played ball with us in college, he and I used to go to remember the dams?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't even remember where they were. I remember we could walk or we could pedal our bikes from the rugby house to the dams. I remember that. So they couldn't have been too far. We would go there on occasion. And I remember one time he and I were sitting there and he said, you know why we don't slow down, Brian, in life? And of course, that was a different level of speed back then. It was, partying and playing rugby and, maybe chasing women or whatever we were doing in our early 20s. And I said, no, I don't know. He goes, because if we slow down, the stench of our lives will catch up to us. And I'm like, wow. And I think about that so often as when I'm going too fast or you're going too fast, anyone, and you stop and really start to reflect and think and feel who you realize that that's a lot of times why we don't really know our true selves, because when we stop, so many things, we're afraid things are going to catch up to us, the mistakes we've made, the regrets we have. And in reality, that stuff's always going to be there. It's always going to chase us. When we stop and turn and fight it, it's when we really determine, okay, now I know who I am. I at least have a better sense of who I am than if I just keep running and ignoring my true self, or that what I call your true peak identity. So that's a powerful one. I like that answer. I haven't heard it worded the way you worded it. All right, brother. What's next for Jim Bell?
Just keep moving forward, right? Keep failing forward. I've got a lot of plans. I mean, new things that in my career anyway, that I think there's some exciting things on the horizon for mortgage brokers and some new ideas that I have to try to help them be better, right? Like, how do I help them, manage their day better, have a little less stress, be able to focus on what they enjoy doing more. So I've got some ideas around that personally. I got the travel bug again last year. Kids and I flew down to the Galapagos Islands for 8 days, which was just absolutely mind-blowing amazing. So, I know we've talked about Africa and possibly doing a safari or something else, but I want to go out there and just continue to experience the world.
Yeah, you told me about the Galapagos trip. I think the first time we actually spoke a month or so ago. Yep. And it kind of I put it on my bucket list as somewhere I do definitely want to go at some point. And I've never been there.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I mean, you think back, and this is where Charles Darwin did a lot of his research, about evolution and, how things, develop over time. And, you go down there, we spent probably half a day with the giant tortoises.
Okay, tell people how big they are.
They are like the ones we were in. They vary dramatically depending on what island that they are originally from and where they are. But the average that we were seeing was probably 3.5 feet tall. Some were a little bit taller. Their heads stick up even further, and they're probably 7 feet long. I mean, in some of these they said were 175 to 200 years old.
That's almost hard to comprehend.
Isn't it? And then when we went back to the little breeding area, because they've got them in these preserves, and they're like 30, 40 acres, so it's not like they're confined in a pen. But they had the babies, and I mean they're the size of $50. And you think about that, you're like, holy moly, that 7 foot long, 4 foot beast that we just saw, moseying along out there came from that little $50.
Well, when you have 200 years to grow, man, you can grow some.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'd be a little afraid of what I'd look like in 200 years, I'll be honest.
If you keep growing, man, I don't know if I want to see that. How much do you think the bigger ones weigh? Oh,
I don't even know. They were enormous. That shell had to be several hundred pounds.
Wow.
I mean, it was just, I have videos of them walking, and they don't look almost. But I mean, it was the same way with a lot of the animals in that area. There's just so many unique species of animals, and because the whole area is protected, the animals are not afraid of humans. So, you could be walking along and there could be a bird sitting on a branch that's 2 feet from you, and you just look over and look at it, take a picture, and it doesn't flinch, it doesn't move, it doesn't fly off, because they're so well protected.
I would go there just to see these turtles.
The turtles, the sea lions, the different iguanas, they have marine iguanas that jump into the water and swim. Tropical penguins, which I'll be honest, before I went to Galapagos, I don't even know that I knew there were tropical penguins.
Yeah, I've never heard of them. All right, one final question, Jim. Is there anything that I didn't ask, any question that you wish I would have, or is there any one final message you want to leave with the audience members out there?
You don't actually physically interact, but you're right there with them.
Hey, Jim, we lost you for a moment.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I thought you were done, so I asked the final question.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So I'll ask it again. Is there any question that I didn't ask that you wish I would have, or is there any final message you want to leave with the Bamboo Pack audience?
I don't think so. I think we've hit a lot of stuff. We've gone over a lot of information. I guess if it sums it all up is continue to drive yourself toward the things you're passionate about, right? Do the things you love. And do them 100%. We only get a certain amount of time on this big rock. Just try to embrace every moment that you have to do the things you love.
All right. So I'm going to rephrase that again, because I think that's a great final message. Continue to drive yourself toward the things you're passionate about, and give it your very best. Give it your 100%. Life is short, and every second we tick away, it gives us one less second to chase the dream.
That's it.
Brother, I appreciate you so much.
Appreciate you having me.
I really do. You're a great man. John and Kathy have done an amazing job, and now you're doing an amazing job. You and Julie are doing an amazing job with Chelsea and Brandon, and that's how we continue to make this world a better place. Good people breed good people who breed good people. I love it.
Amen.
I love it. All right. Can you stay on for a minute after we're done, after we wrap up?
Sure.
All right, my brother. I appreciate you, man. You were an amazing guest on the Bamboo Lab podcast. We're going to have you back on here again in the future if you'll take your time out of your busy schedule to do so. But again, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in this week. We'll be back again next week with another episode. And in the meantime, I want to please get out there. I'm going to ask you to strive to be and give your best. Please show love and respect to others and for yourself. And please live consciously and intentionally. And remember, fail your way forward by Jim Bell. All right. Everyone, thank you very much. Talk to you soon. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time.